Gemara, 4 things always need his chizuk, and shalom bayis is one of them. Okay, so it's fine. We want to learn more. We want to be better husbands. It's great. And again, I when I first started working at Emet, I was asked the following question more than once. I said, Rabbi, you're telling me all this stuff when I started doing the Shalom Bayis lectures. So I said, listen, my grandparents, didn't work that way for them. They didn't have this lecture. You have to talk this or that way. It was fine. And like I said, our question and answer thing, they had a different relationship. Okay, most of us don't really want our grandparents' relationship. Okay, they were role mates, for, generally speaking, meaning grandpa did it, and that's it. We are looking for soulmates. So soulmates is much more complex. Obviously, the reward is much higher. You have a real relationship. Your best friends. Your wife's your life partner. Your parents together. Everything that takes a lot of work. It's not like person A goes to work, person B does the dishes. It's not going to help, right? It's not going to be a relationship that we're satisfied with right now. I believe it's as we're getting closer to Mashiach. We want to have like that perfect zivug that we're spending our life with, and it's going to take work. Okay, so I want to say something that everyone will stick in their mind, and I'm going to break down marriage into 3 parts. Okay, so I said I'm a little bit older than you guys. So when I was growing up, I wasn't religious yet. So there was they had posters what life was all about. Okay, in the 70s, in the 70s especially, 70s, 80s, they said that life is about 3 things. Oh, and rock and roll. Very good. You remember that? Okay, very good. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Those 3 things. Okay, so now we're going to say marriage is going to be about, for us, 3 things we're going to talk about today, and you'll probably hopefully remember these 3 things. The first one actually is the same. So sex, trust, and soul. Okay, so we switch the sex, drugs, and rock and roll to sex, drugs, and soul. Okay. Did I say that was important?
The Rabbi gave the approval.
I'm so happy this isn't being recorded. Sex, trust, and soul. They said it has no sound.
They lip read. Be careful.
Okay, so now the problem is the intimacy. We like to say that instead of sex, it's whatever, it's Loshanaki. So that's the top of the pyramid. Okay, so if you go for that first, without drugs and rock and roll, it's not going to work out that well. So it's like that's the top of the pyramid. So we really want to build a pyramid. It's a Jewish pyramid according to Rabbi Shlomo Volbe. He brings us down in his Kuntrus L'Chatanim, which is like a pamphlet for people who are about to get married. So the foundation of the Jewish marriage and of fatherhood and everything else is the soul, the neshama, right? And this really is the husband's responsibility. I say this all the time, but I cannot say it enough. We have to view ourselves as the rabbi of our house. Okay, we're the rabbi of our house. It doesn't mean we have to know everything, right? But it does mean we have to behave a certain way, probably the way you want your rabbi to behave. And it does mean that we have to constantly inspire the home, meaning our wife and our kids, with Torah, with love, and mostly with talking in a proper and respectful way to everyone around us. Now, is this easy? Absolutely not. Are we going to get it right 100% of the time? Absolutely not. And it's like I said before, it's okay to fail. But we have a backup plan. The backup plan is, if we do not do the right thing, we have to prepare the apology. Okay, that's very important. Just prepare the apology. Say, I'm sorry, I want to do better next time. Now, if you say this every time, it's not going to work. But if you really mean it, right, say, I'm sorry, I want to do better next time, that's going to be perfect. And everyone here, since this is part of the human condition, so we will not say everything right all the time. It's not always going to be perfect. As a matter of fact, I did not, just a week ago, I did not have my greatest Shalom Bayis moment. Basically we were having the Shabbaton. It sounds good at the retreat. Yeah, we had 50 people for Shabbos, right? But when I told my wife, hey, we're having 50 people at Shabbos, it didn't sound that great to her. She's like, what? We can't even fit him in all. So anyway, basically I had to, I tried this way, that way, but it was emotional for me also. So I basically said, okay, do you want me to get a new job? So I had to resort to that. So that line seems to have worked. Because we were coming to the retreat anyway. We didn't want to miss out on the hotel. So it's not always, not that I'm the paradigm shalom bayis, it's not always going to be perfect, but there has to be this mutual understanding that you're on the same team, okay? And my father taught me something so important. He said, it takes, this is when I was learning how to drive, not for shalom bayis. He said, it takes two people to make an accident. Two people to make an accident. When you're driving, if one person's paying attention, no, so we don't. I don't want to support it because I want to have some questions and answers. So it's fine. It's fine. We don't need voice. We're already in the middle of the lecture.
I can mute it.
Okay, so it takes two people to make an accident. God forbid, right? So if you're driving on the road, if one person is paying attention, they can swerve out of the way almost all the time, avoid the accident.
Unless you hit a tree.
So, right. Well, you could honk, the tree doesn't move out of the way. So it takes two people to make an accident. That means if one person is paying attention in shalom bayis, and that's why my wife is teaching your wives right now. If one person's paying attention at that moment, okay, you're going to avoid the fight. So after I said, like, okay, let me get a different job, so my wife was able to, just say, you know what, we're on the same team. Right? She was able to swerve. So it did not escalate. I got lucky, basically. So because, it probably wouldn't have escalated so much. But that's only because we're married for a long time. It's also, the more you're married, usually you know each other's trigger points and you're able to do a little bit better. So I tell the kids actually in a very funny way, because especially as we just married off a daughter, and like I don't want to think that you're never going to get in a fight, everything's always going to be perfect. So I always tell them, you really only met, your mother and I, like when we were married already 5-6 years, right? Because they were too little to remember anything before, and it takes some time to get them. So like by that time, we already worked out, we were already behaving ourselves. I mean, so you don't know what that means, ask a friend. So it's normal to have some fights, and it's normal for things not to be perfect, and it's normal for us to annoy each other, yada, 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 because that's the way Hashem made it, because we're here to work on our character traits, and as you're developing your character traits, that, there's some, I always say it's like a seed sprouting into a beautiful flower. There's going to be some ugly moments, but the point is it's going to sprout. And the only way to do that is the baseline, the soul that we're giving over, right, is that we're on the same team. And we do that, I always say, we have to imagine we're the rabbi of the house. And it goes for your wife and kids. You're on the same team. Imagine you're the rabbi of the shul, right? Or especially if you're doing, in our business, in Shiur, you're trying to bring people closer to Torah. Let's say people don't necessarily do what the right thing is. They don't know what it is, or it's hard, whatever. So you don't say, okay, get out. It doesn't work that way, right? You say, no, we're on the same team. It's okay. Every step is good. We're getting closer, and that's how you have to view yourself with both your wife and your kids. Make that we're on the same team. In a moment, we're going to open up for questions. We're on the same team. The baseline for marriage is you have to everyone has to feel like you're on the same team. Sometimes, I don't know if you guys ever played any organized sports or had any teammates or watched any organized sports. It's not, sometimes that, there's some back and forth. That, there's not always like yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. It doesn't always work like that. But there's a concept that they're moving together, okay? And they're really, they have the same goal. So and that's the baseline. You are the rabbi of the house. The family has the same goal to make it through Olam Haza in one piece, okay? Make it to Olam Haba. Now, there's a couple of things that you have to do. My recommendations that I would like everyone here to do for that to happen. One is you have to make sure you have good divrei Torah to say at home. Okay, this is very hard. Right? It takes some time to prepare, but especially on Shabbat, you want to make sure that you have something to say, like even 2-3 minutes for every meal, right? Just because, you know why? Because you're sitting at the head of the table, right? And one of the worst things you could do, my rabbi says, one of my rabbis says, one of the worst things you could do is if you get there with like a book, like Rabbi Yosef or Rabbi Fran on the Parsha. Say, oh, do you have a Devar Torah? So, yes, let me start reading this. He said that's like giving your wife plastic jewelry, right? Because your wife is looking for something from your heart. So, meaning you could read this Rabbi Fran or the Yakut Yosef on the Parsha or whatever, read it, write it over in your own words, prepare, take like 5-10 minutes, and then say the Torah. Now, women like inspirational, practical, and short, right? Especially if you have little kids on the Shabbos table. There's, you have 1 minute. Okay, that's it. You have 1 minute for Devar Torah, so make it count. And when you do that, your wife starts looking at you differently. Anyway, I assume everyone here is sitting at the head of the table on Shabbat, hopefully on the weekdays too. So everyone's looking at the head of the table. Everyone's looking at the head of the table. So you're like, okay, what can you tell us? Please, you're here. So it's very, very important. You're the rabbi of the house. Make sure you know a good Devar Torah. If you can't do all 3 meals, start with 1 meal. Start Friday night. Saturday, you could just blame it on the kids anyway. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is you have to be careful how you speak at home. You're not going to be perfect. Try your best not to get angry. Try your best not to say words that you wouldn't want to hear your rabbi say. And if you goof up, just say, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that." That's okay. When last Thursday when I was telling my wife very nicely we're going to be having 52 people in our living room that fits 44. So I told her after, I said, I'm sorry. I should, I'm sorry if I said, oh, you want me? I know she doesn't want me to leave Emmett. It's like, God forbid, but
Get excited.
yeah, we get it. We're human. We get excited. Hashem made us this way. That our job, by the way, we have the ability to be higher than an angel. Why? Because we can take the animal part of ourselves and train it to act like an angel. The angels already start off as angels, so we're doing like 1 level up. We can train ourselves to be that way. Okay, the next thing is, if your wife has a particular halakha question, okay? So your job as the rabbi, right, is don't have her call me, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Crap, whatever. I want to take care of this for you. I'm not expecting you to know the answer. I don't know. No one knows all the answers, right? So a lot of times I call Rabbi Yochanan also. It's okay. So when students ask me questions, I try to answer. If I don't know the answer, because maybe it's like a Sephardi halakha or something else, I call someone that does. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm taking responsibility. One of the greatest things you could do for your marriage and for your wife and kids is to make them feel like, hey, you know what? I'm the rabbi. Do I know everything? Absolutely not. But I can say I don't know, and I'm going to find out. And then you have to actually get back to them. You can't say, oh, yeah, let me call you back next Tuesday. And by the way, whenever you talk to a rabbi and try to get a halakhic answer, you always learn so much from that conversation. It's always so beautiful. Okay, same thing with Nida. Try to be in contact with the Nida rabbi, especially when the Nida rabbi doesn't want to talk to your wife. I don't know if you guys know this information. He would so much rather talk to you. If it's something intricate detail, they have to talk to each other, okay. But try to take care of it. Don't you be the middle person, because that's really our job. And so that's how we're going to lay the foundation. We're going to build up from here. So first, we're going to make sure that the family atmosphere, we're the same team. The second thing is we're going to make sure that we have like good divrei Torah to say, and then the third thing is we're going to make sure that we are speaking appropriately to the best of our ability most of the time. It's not going to be perfect every time. If it's not perfect, what are we going to do? Apologize. By the way, I was talking with a student who's dating, and my wife was talking to the girl he was dating, and we just tried to tell him that he came late 4 times in a row, and we asked him to apologize to the girl, right? So of course he didn't apologize, and the girl broke up. So then he told me, he's like, well, I came on time the 5th time. Like, what? Is it important in marriage to apologize? So I was like, is it important in marriage to apologize? That's the most important thing. What do you think? You're going to be a tzaddik and do everything right? It's just simple teshuvah. We're not expected to do everything right, but we're expected to take responsibility and say, I'm sorry. Okay, and then the last thing is make sure that you are able to sort of be the middle person and make sure that your wife's halakhic questions get answered. Don't have her call one of the Emmett rabbis or Rabbi Israel or whoever. You do it. Say, I'm going to take care of it for you, okay? And it's just like, well, you don't know anything yet. So you say, well, this is how I'm going to learn. You know, I'm taking responsibility for the home. By the way, when 15, 16, 17 years ago, when this was first told to us, whatever I'm telling you is usually like I went through it myself. I just learned it the hard way. So, and I'm trying to save you guys a little bit. So when someone told my wife that I'm supposed to be the rabbi of the house, she almost like passed out laughing, you know. But I was like, I took that very personally. I was like, you know, I was like, what? You know, you don't think I can do it? I'll show you, you know. So then, whatever. Next thing you know, 3-4 years later, I have a rabbi job. So that's how it works. So if you take, you guys could be the next Emma rabbi. It's if you take responsibility at home, everything changes very, very, very quickly. Okay.
Please mute your phones.
Yeah, turn your phones off, whatever. It's right now. It's a nice noise. Okay, then now let's move up to the next level. Yes.
Can I share a suggestion with the group about
Sure.
Torah? What I'd like to do is if I don't have time during the week to actually read a different Torah to prepare for Shabbat or anything, if you just go to shul on Shabbat, chances are your rabbi's going to say a different Torah. It's kind of a little bit of a cheat sheet. You just come back and repeat that.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to say that we have to talk more privately, but that again is like getting plastic jewelry for your wife. Okay, because you need to make it your own. You can't wait till Friday, you know, till maybe the rabbi gives the Torah. What if he's not feeling well that day or whatever? So then, and usually it speaks Saturday day anyway. So I don't know. So I would just suggest you being the rabbi in the home is worth 5 to 10 minutes of your time. Well, right now, all you have to do, go listen to powerful, Meaningful Minute, Torah Anytime Minute. They have everything, you know, WhatsApp Minute. They have a million different things. Hear something you like and make it into your own. It's by the way, we're starting a Chabura on Sundays, Bezrat Hashem. That the first thing we're doing this Chabura is we're going to read the Parsha all together, just in English, just so we're thinking about the Parsha the whole week. Then everyone will have it. It takes 20 minutes, and you have a nice Devar Torah. By the way, this is effort. The Shalom Bayit is effort. Having your wife as your soulmate is effort. Yeah, okay, I'm going to answer some questions before we move on, because remember, we have sex, trust, and soul. So we just did the soul. We're going to do intimacy. Thank you. Soul, trust, and intimacy. Sorry, I was thinking about the sevens. Okay, yes, question.
Well, it's more of a comment, specifically for the Divrei Torah, that I found success in what I find interesting in Torah. Like, I find halakha to be incredibly interesting. My wife doesn't find that to be particularly interesting.
Right.
If I ever share Divrei Torah on that generally, it's not that it isn't received well, it's that it's not like what she's looking for necessarily.
Right. So. Exactly. That's why I said women like things that are practical and inspirational. 2 things, practical and inspirational. Okay, yes, you had a question, Moisey?
No, also
You're
comment,
stretching?
'cause
Okay.
you told me this years ago.
I did.
And one
Did
of
you
the things
listen?
I noticed, along with what the other guy said, is that when you do give Divrei Torah, the children or the this or that very often get in the way.
Right.
And we shouldn't take that to offense
Right.
or cause a fight because of that.
Right. That's why I said just 1 minute. Pack in 1 minute. Okay. Yes.
So I started something recently with my oldest daughter. She's coming back from school now, and at the table, I'm bringing her to the front and asking her questions about the parsha.
Okay.
Things that she's learning.
Right.
And then I'm expounding on whatever she's saying.
Okay.
And my wife seems to take it to that.
Right. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying, ideally, you want to be giving the Devar Torah. Like if let's say, like I'm pretending to be the rabbi here. So if I said, okay, rabbi, you know, like let me bring someone else in, what do you have to say? So it's just not the same. You guys may like it, but it's not the same.
You should do both, because that's what happens with me. My son wants to get up and
Yeah, of course, with the kids.
Use the kids.
The kids are amazing, but it doesn't absolve from your own Devar Torah.
Right.
And hone it in. Again, it's not going to be perfect every time, but it's just something important to have in your back line. You have to say, I'm responsible. I need to have a Devar Torah for this table. Okay? Because your kids are also looking at you. Your kids are looking at you. Your wife is looking at you. And if they say, oh, what is it? Because again, if the kids see, oh, Abba's not really saying anything. He's just relying on, you know, Junior, who's in 4th grade, to say the Devar Torah. So it's not the same thing. Yes, in the back.
It's just a minute?
Whatever you can get in. Certainly not more than 3 minutes, because then, like, you know, it's going to be, you know, you don't, right, you don't want anyone, just a quick Devar Torah on the Parsha. Bring in some point that you like. What?
Only on Shabbat.
You can say it all week long, but we just want to start at least on Shabbat. Yes, in the back.
That's what I remember for the rest of the week.
How is it possible to And if some wives or a lot of wives, when, when the point is the Torah, either the wife was like, she doesn't find interest in it because she's more worried about the food not getting cold.
Right.
Or she's like, or she comes from a family like that didn't have the Torah
Right.
on the table. So she's not like very used to it, so has to
Right. Yeah, so you have to, first of all, it's going to take some effort. You have to hone it in, and you have to really think, what is my wife like? When I was able to make Divrei Torah for my wife that she found interesting, so like Hashem let me put in front of other people also. So you're at home, your wife's your number one audience person, okay? And then obviously the kids are second. So think, it's not, did I ever say this was easy? This is not easy. This is like for the goal, to have a soulmate for a wife, that takes so much work and effort. Rollmate's much easier. But we don't want that right now. So it's going to be a lot of effort. The main thing, make it interesting for her, right? So don't talk, the cow, the cow went against the wall fell. It's not good.
So don't talk about work. Just
like Musan and Mashal.
Right.
See what they're interested in.
See, ask your wife. You know what? You could also ask. Say, hey, what?
Yeah, because it's so you can take so many lessons from each parsha. No, I learned it over 12 years. Some things are.
Stories.
So call Lev. Right. No,
Right.
don't call me.
Lev, every Thursday night, Lev reads the parsha. He's ready for Shabbat.
Yeah, I really do.
Right.
But there's so many lessons you can learn from each week, and you tailor it to what your wife wants to hear about, whether it's
Right.
parenting or you know what I mean.
Right. By the way, guys, I just want to talk in our own language. It comes down to respect. You want your wife to respect you, and the respect starts with the Torah. Because everyone here is like obviously interested in Judaism. Some are very, very interested in Judaism, and they're looking for you. You're at the head of the table. They're not. You're okay. The fact that I could say, Rabbi Kraft or whatever says nice to the Torah, that's great. But it's not the same as you saying. Right? It's totally not the same as
And
you
it's
saying.
not
So it's
the-
going to take some work.
And it's another way of showing your attention to your wife.
Yeah. Right. So what I would just suggest is that you ask your wife, say, hey, what did you find interesting on an Emet retreat? What kind of, I want to also be honest. Say, hey, I like to prepare Devar Torah for you also. You can blame it on me. You could say, I'm so inspired from the retreat. You don't have to say I told you. I'm so inspired for the retreat. I want to start giving Divrei Torah at home. Short and sweet. What's interesting to you? What can I talk about? Just like that. Ask a question. Yes.
So, in terms of being the Rabbi, in terms of behavior, right?
Yes.
Sometimes you wanna like joke around, like you have somebody, a friend or whatever, brother-in-law,
Right.
comes over and you wanna like joke around him, but your wife doesn't really like appreciate it.
Right.
She wants like you said, she wants it to be like the rabbi.
Right.
So how do you find that like a balance between like being kind of like jokey and a little lightheaded at
Well,
the same time being because you want to be yourself. Also,
I mean,
you
I
joke
think
around.
right. So I think one of the things we noticed from all the speakers to this Shabbat is everyone said funny things. Everyone made jokes. If Rabbi Maximo said something so witty and funny, I don't know if you guys heard him at the third meal yesterday.
He peels the
Yeah.
apples himself. I don't.
Right. No, not that. He said that he was talking about Yosef's dreams with the skinny cows and the fat cows. And he said, by the way, archaeologists found the bones of those cows. And everyone's like, oh, where? It was like, no, I'm kidding. It was a dream. Right? So it's totally, you can totally be yourself. Rabbi, I don't know if Rabbi Fazal can hear me. He's probably listening to something else. But we work together. We're ourselves, but we were doing it like in a classy way. Just yet.
Rabbi, I don't think the women don't appreciate when we make immature
Right,
comments.
of course.
They
That's
feel
for
like
sure.
You're degrading yourself in front of people, so that's
Right, and by the way,
You gotta
you don't appreciate. People don't appreciate when rabbis make such comments. Also, so you have to be very, very careful.
right.
I actually had to when I became religious, and especially when I started working as a rabbi, I had to change my sense of humor.
Right.
I used to make fun of people. Now I have to make fun of situations. You can't make fun of it. It's not going to work. What?
Does that make you judgmental?
What?
Making fun of people?
Okay, so that's a good question. So for some people that would make it, for me it was just fun. I wasn't trying to lift myself up. I just thought it was a funny situation.
Is that like a kind of a habit? Was your habit?
It was I was a Weisenheimer kid. You know what I mean? So that was my habit. Yeah, it's just I was one of those guys. So But you know, as we grow, we change. You're right. Wives don't make immature things. By the way, even he changed when I said sex. He's changed it to intimacy because I'm not supposed to. I could say once as the rabbi just to make a point, but I shouldn't be saying that. You know, and I appreciate you saying that. Right? We got to switch. So and that's the same thing, right? I hope it wasn't on audio. In the back, the young rabbi-looking guy in the back. Intimacy, we're not even there yet. We're just building up. Right? We can't get past the soul.
The foundation for most.
All right,
Step one.
right. Of course,
You can relate to this. Your wife is a speaker,
she is.
so is my wife. So
Right.
She likes to speak.
Right,
She actually takes on the role of a rabbi.
right. You got your role cut out for you.
Yeah?
Yeah. So you got. Okay. Listen, I understand what you're saying. By the way, what happened? This is not being recorded. Okay. So basically, one of the things, I was working on Wall Street. Okay, and I was actually making money. And then someone said, you know, my wife's a very, very talented individual, and someone said, oh, why don't you come give a divrei Torah to this group of girls? So she started speaking to a group, right, and went well. Another group, you know, and so she spoke like maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4, maybe once a month at most. And this was like 20 years ago, so you could tell which direction she was going to be going in. And at that point, you could tell which direction I was going to be going. So Hashem made a big miracle. I stopped making money. Okay, and then we ran out of money. And then, you know, when things aren't working, so then, you know, it's normal. You go to your rabbi, your rabbis. So we were dealing with like 2 different rabbis, an Israeli rabbi and an American rabbi living in Israel. And the American rabbi said, listen, your Shalom Bayit is going to be off. It's already off, but it's going to be even more off because you're the man. You're supposed to be Marbas Torah. You're the one supposed to be talking Torah. If your wife wants to do it, that's great also, but you have to take the lead. Roll in that, right? And when I heard that, I was like, okay, I'm just going to change. So, and then that's what happened. So you have, yes, your wife likes to speak. She has YouTube things. Great. Okay. That means Hashem believes in you.
So where do you start on that point when your wife is in the lead of giving the Torah lesson?
Right.
You're like behind it because I am right now in those shoes.
Right.
My wife is very religious, thank God, and I'm, you know, first year into this.
Right.
So I'm just like.
Okay, so that's
building
so
myself up.
Hashem's going to give you some chance, but you got to get ahead. At Emmett, a lot of guys marry girls that are like a little bit higher observant level than them, and I was telling them the same thing. I think that's good now, but like you got to move ahead. I'll give you just a regular mashal. It's like if your wife makes more money than you, okay, it's okay, but it's not going to be great. You know what I mean? So
I usually start like
to say the least.
I started like practicing like reading and stuff, but she's helping me, and we learn actually every day, like
Right.
for 5-10 minutes.
That's great. So
to,
it's
to like a parsha.
Right.
By the end of by the
Right.
Shabbat coming in,
right.
we already read the whole parsha.
Right, great. But now prepare something on that parsha without your wife knowing. Then when you give the Torah, she's going to be so impressed. She'll,
That's
oh,
what I
man, it's
usually
amazing. It's
Starting to do.
you have Hashem will give you some points, but you have to just know in the back of your head what the goal is. Okay. So all right, but we're not going to get to the intimacy part. You know, right now we're going to do trust. Okay, trust. Okay. So that's this. So first we got soul. Now we got trust. Okay. Now. I'm not going to ask any rhetorical questions. There's one main way we learn how to trust Hashem, okay? And it goes back to Adam Harishon. So Hashem never punishes. He just gives a person an opportunity to do a tikkun, a rectification, okay? So Adam Harishon, what did he do wrong? He did not trust Hashem. Hashem said, don't eat from the tree. He got tempted, he ate. Right? So
Shalom Bay.
you know, he trusted his wife, but that was not the point right there. The point was Hashem told him not to eat. So I have a whole lecture on this. Basically, at home, it's just on a side note. It may not be your fault, but it's always your responsibility. And the problem was he didn't take responsibility. But the underlying issue was he didn't trust Hashem. If Hashem says don't do something, it doesn't matter the wife, the Gestapo, the communists, the American government, whatever. You're not going to do it if you trust Hashem. So
Be the rabbi.
be the rabbi. So Hashem says, you know what? You don't trust me, so now I'm going to make you work for a living. Not as a punishment, as a way to develop trust. And so so we trust Hashem through parnasa, right? This is why this is our thing. Okay, so it works in 3 basic ways. Okay, you can figure